Hello, everybody, and welcome to askLRR, the show where we answer your questions.
We're the lure. You do the asking.
And today, it's myself, Paul, and James
Yo.
over there, and Graham.
That's me.
And obviously, you can see the format slightly different this year or this month.
God, I hope it's not the whole year.
For obvious reasons. But we still wanted to do this so that we can answer all sorts of questions that people have asked. Now, these questions come from our YouTube subscribers, our YouTube members.
Members, yes, is the nomenclature.
YouTube members. But so if you want to ask a question, you have to be a YouTube member. But of course, we want to send this video to everybody. So hopefully, if you are not a YouTube member, some of these questions are questions that you also had. So let's just get into it here.
Yeah.
First question from Joey Brisson. What is the most surprising thing you have done because of LRR?
I mean, I guess for me that the answer probably changes as the years go on. End of 2006, I was surprised that we did a live stage show. That was surprising and not something I had ever thought that I would do.
Like, I guess it depends on where surprising from what perspective.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of LoadingReadyRun is surprising from the perspective of, a myself 20 years ago.
Yeah.
In terms of, what about, like, just in order to narrow this down, how about, like, what's something that you didn't, that was actually, like, surprising in the moment, not just in hindsight?
I mean, still, I think one of the most sort of wild, like, I can't believe I'm in this situation things was doing Wootstock.
Yeah, that was pretty big. Yeah,
performing on stage with a bunch of us from Loading Ready Run, along with Adam Savage, and there we go. Yeah, with Paul and Storm, Adam Savage, and Will Wheaton, was just so surreal. Because I'd grown up watching Star Trek and being like, "Oh, this is Will Wheaton. We're just hanging out with him." Okay, that's cool. So that was weird.
Yeah, that was weird. I'm trying to think of. I actually had one, and now I forget. Because now I started thinking about Wootstock, and that was pretty surprising.
Yeah.
The entire umbrella of Desert Bus is.
I mean, it's pretty much
not
constant state of surprise.
I mean, actually, one of the strangest things that I have done as a result of Desert Bus, which is a result of Loading Ready Run, is the year that they announced Desert Bus VR, and I sat on stage at Benaroya Hall in Seattle for the entirety of the
Gearbox
presentation, pretending to play Desert Bus VR, sitting there on a chair with goggles in basically darkness for an hour,
but
with
you
my
weren't
hands like this.
You weren't actually playing.
No, I wasn't actually playing. I was just sitting there and we rehearsed the movements that I did, so that when I was playing, I still wasn't playing, but I was mimicking what they were seeing. And I sat there for an hour and did this, and they no-sold it, right?
Yeah.
Like, for the entire hour, I was just sitting there in plain view of hundreds of people in the audience and however many people watching at home. I was just freaking. I sat there the entire time thinking, how did I get here? What did I do to get here?
Maybe you weren't in plain view of hundreds of people. Like, maybe once they put the VR goggles on you, they all left.
Yeah, it's possible.
No, it was great because he was on the stage the whole time, and the MC and all the the sort of the speakers to talk about all the various Gearbox stuff leading up to that, just completely acted like he didn't exist, even though he was definitely visible. And so everyone in the audience was just like, what's that guy doing? That's weird.
Nice.
Yeah.
I remember just something that was actually like surprising, a nice surprise. It was just so bizarre, though. I remember I was walking into the office one day, and a guy was walking towards me down the street, and he started sort of giving me like as if he's like recognized me, and I didn't know who he was, and he comes up to me, and he goes, Paul, from Loading Ready Run. I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh, I'm such a big fan, and he was, his I think his name was actually like Camel, and he was like, yes, I know the jokes, because he was like from Iran. He was in Victoria for like his brother's graduation from UVic. And he was a big Loading Ready Run fan. So he was in Victoria for like a couple days.
Huh.
And he was a big Loading Ready Run fan. And it was just like such a wonderful, like, small world thing. I was like, do you have a couple minutes? Do you want to like come to the office and meet the rest of the guys? And so, we went over to the office and hung out for a little bit.
Huh.
And it was just such a bizarre, and he was talking about that he's interested in doing sketch comedy stuff too, but in his home area. So it was just such a wonderful coincidence that I enjoyed that.
That's so cool.
All right, next question. Nate Twehughes. Twehughes. Says, obviously, Lure has done a lot in your partnership with Wizards of the Coast, Friday Nights, PPRs, Dice Friends, etc. If Lure could have a similar partnership with another IP holder or content creator, who would you choose?
Ooh.
I mean, Marvel?
I mean, why don't just go with Disney? And
I mean, I guess we could go
That's
Disney
basically every IP.
Yeah, I was going to say, but I get a little bit more specific and go like Marvel Studios, right? Like that. I mean, that's just a given.
I mean, we've talked about it would be great, like what do you call it? Like Warhammer.
Games Workshop.
Games Workshop. Why can't I remember the name? Games Workshop would be kind of a no-brainer. And it would be neat to be able to actually like, to do sort of Games Workshop content. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff about that.
I like James's suggestion, and I also like, not that I don't think we couldn't do, something more, more serious, because I absolutely do think that we could, but they should do more like funny one-shots, like, little like short, like intentionally comedy things in the Marvel universe. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I mean, they have done a few little bits, especially usually they're like DVD extras or like little bonus bits they put out. But yeah,
we could do those though. We could definitely do those. I mean, also under the Disney umbrella, the Muppets.
Oh, that could be cool.
That's more of a personal thing for me. I really like the Muppets. I don't know. Sony.
Yeah, I mean, if you get
I'm thinking of the video game arm. Yeah, I'm thinking of the video game arm when I say Sony. I mean, I've just been playing I've been playing 2 different Final Fantasy games recently, so I don't know. Like, I'm just like SquareSoft, yeah, but maybe not.
I mean, Nintendo for that matter.
Oh my god, that'd be so good.
Yeah, doing something with Nintendo would be great.
We could be wholesome.
Beach would be so happy.
Oh yeah,
God, Beach would be so happy. Call us, Nintendo.
I mean, speaking of wholesome Nintendo things.
Yep.
How much are turnips selling for right now?
86 right now.
I didn't check this afternoon, but this morning it was 61. Luckily, I sold earlier in the week.
I still need to sell.
You still need to
That-
sell?
Yep.
Ooh, you're cutting it close. You should get in the Discord.
Probably.
Considering-
I might need to put the call out. We'll see.
Yeah.
Considering the delay on putting this out, that information is probably useless to you.
Yes, that's true.
I think I like the spoiling of turnips thing, because like turnips being root vegetables are actually like one of the things that are really good to keep. Like if you keep them in a cool, dry place, you can keep them for like a really long time. There's something that
Yeah.
people keep so that they have food over the winter.
But you kind of have to just leave your turnips wherever you have space in that game. So it's kind of awkward. Like you leave them on the beach or you leave them in your basement.
I just fill up my house with them. They're all over
Yeah.
the floor.
That's what my basement is for. It's
But
empty except for turnip.
I have restraint though. I limit myself to if I clear everything out of my inventory except turnips.
Yeah.
That's all the turnips I buy.
So
So I only have to,
4,000. That's 4,000 turnips. Yeah.
exactly. I only have to make one trip rather than
Yeah.
like people like Beej doing their like 6 trips to whatever island sells high.
Yeah.
I limit myself, says the man holding 4,000 turnips.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm showing admirable restraint.
Yeah.
All right. This is relevant for these times. A lot of entertainers are feeling the pressure of having to entertain a bigger audience with self-isolation. Do you feel this effect? I mean,
No.
I don't feel-
our
Our
viewership,
viewership numbers have gone up.
Yeah.
yeah, not
more
like
people are at home.
ridiculously hugely
No.
gone up though.
No, I would say that. I mean, I've been looking at the numbers. Like our average viewership is up probably like overall like 20% on Twitch right now, which is pretty impressive, honestly, and super
I mean, it's-
cool.
It's
I
great,
don't-
yeah.
I don't feel a pressure because of it.
Yeah, it's not the kind of increase that is like, oh, now we have a real audience. We got to be careful about what we say. Like it's
Yeah. Like
If it was
through this
like
we
a
had-
10 times increase, then it would be like, okay. You know,
I mean, yeah, that's the
things
thing,
are a
right? It's
little
like if
different
we had
now.
gone average viewership on like as a whole, let's say 500 on Twitch, if that was up to like 5,000, then yes, there would be some pressure there because not only are you having to, you know, perform for a much larger audience than you're used to, you're also thinking in the back of your head, how do we keep these people around when this goes away,
Yeah.
right? How do we maintain having this audience? But I think it's basically just allowed more of our already existing audience to watch more of us. So
Yeah, we also
It's
like
true, yeah.
don't really like hand wring and get weird about viewership numbers anyway. Like the most that it comes up is that like after a stream, it'll be like, oh, we had like 1,200 people watching. Oh wow, okay, cool. You know, but we're never like, you know, it's not like we glance over and go, oh my goodness, there's so many people watching right now. What do I need to do differently? You know, we just
Yeah.
focus on putting out
Yeah.
the best stuff we can.
yeah, and then you take a
So-
look at those numbers, and I mean that's why you're getting a like a bi-weekly Jackbox stream. We did it.
Yeah.
We did it a month ago. We've done it 3 times now, and the numbers were just really good. And we're like, well, we should probably keep doing this because you all like it. So
Yeah.
we're just going to keep streaming it. And honestly, you know, in the back of my head, I'm thinking this is probably something that we should continue to do, even when this goes away. Maybe probably not as frequently, but certainly to some degree. So
Yeah, definitely.
All right. John Potter asks, as the original members of LUR,
Oh,
did you see LUR becoming what it is today, and what does the future hold? Well, I mean,
yes, and I have no idea. Yep, this
Really?
is exactly what I figured I'd be doing on today, and I can't tell you what's going to happen in the future because
James
would
is
be-
a filthy liar.
I am a time traveler and I know everything.
I mean, I agree with the second thing, which is that I have no idea what the future holds. But certainly not. This is absolutely not what I don't know. The thing is, and you know, my dad will be the first to tell you, I never had an idea of where it was going to go. You know,
No.
like it was Paul and I were just like, oh, let's make some videos and put them on the internet. And my dad was like, okay, what's your plan? And I was like, oh, I
Yeah,
don't-
it's
just make it.
Yeah, it was. There was definitely no, and and to a certain extent, it's good to not be too, you don't want to be too locked into a plan. Obviously,
Yeah.
having some sort of plan, and obviously, as we have become larger as a company, you know, planning and sort of thinking ahead becomes more important.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's no way. There's so many, like, loading ready run as it exists now is so different from loading ready, what things started as, and I'm in 10 years I'm sure it'll be different from what it is now.
Yep.
But yeah, it's so hard to that the only thing that the only prediction that has come true is I remember even when I was a kid that my mom used to be saying, it's like, when it was like, what are you going to do when you grow up? She was always like, you're probably going to do something that hasn't been invented yet.
Yeah,
Like,
that
so this is a
tracks.
hard question to answer.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing, right? Is that what the internet was in 2003 when this started is not even a shadow, right? Like
Yeah.
it's so insurmountably different than it was in 2003.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if there will be such a dramatic shift between 2003 versus 2020 versus 2020 versus 2026 or whatever, or 2036, 16 years from now, double it again. But yeah, who knows? We'll find out together. Ask us again in 16 or 17 years.
We
Yep.
we won't remember that you asked us previously.
Probably
No.
not.
And I mean, the thing is, when you're talking about, something that won't be invented yet, is even just the way that we operate day to day, we end up doing things so differently because we're like, we want it to go like this. And no one else has decided that that is a way that they want to do it. So that's not a problem that's been solved. So it
Mhm.
usually means we have to be like, okay, so we're the first people trying it this way. So how do we do it like this? And then, like we need to figure out a new way to edit it together, or Paul needs to invent some new thing to make it happen. And it's just like, wow, how do we keep doing this to ourselves?
So yeah, it's a constant weird thing. Like, I always do. I tend to do things in the way that makes sense, and to the extent that it, like, often the way I want to do things, it makes such sense to me that it seems so glaringly obvious to me that I'm like, oh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'll just get whatever the normal off the shelf component is that does this, because
Yeah,
this must be how everyone does it. And it
obviously.
turns out that that is not the case often.
Yep. It's a weird one.
All right. This is sort of related.
Oh, yeah.
You made a pretty big and very successful, this is what Jeffrey Hayes says anyway,
Mm.
change into moving from sketch based to more stream based content several years ago. Can you talk a little bit about the decision making process surrounding that transition?
If I recall correctly, we I mean, this is another, like, not really prior planning, because we originally started, okay, well, James and I originally started streaming Magic once a week, like a year and a half, 2 years before the big shift.
Yeah, we started
But
streaming in 2012, I think.
yeah,
And that was just other Magic creators started streaming as well, and it seemed like kind of a cool idea.
yeah, we'd been watching Kenji Numathanami do his, like, 365-day challenge, and we were like, we should stream Magic. That seems like a fun thing, and we started getting viewership, and it was like, okay, cool, sweet, let's keep doing that. And then when we were putting together the Kickstarter for the last season of Sketches, one of the was it even a stretch goal, or was it part of the whole thing? Was it part of the original ask? I honestly can't remember. Was that we were like, we're gonna also do, like, other streaming, and I don't even think we were.
We
I don't
weren't
even.
very specific
We
about
weren't
it.
really specific in the campaign. And then when we met the goal, we were like, okay, everyone, how do we want to actually do this? And we sort of laid it out so that everyone got to do stuff and got to stream in a way that they like to do. And then we went back to the viewers and we're like, okay, here's what we're going to do. And people were like, oh, you're taking this really seriously. You're going ham. And we were like, I guess. I mean, because at the time it was like, oh, we have the time to do this. Like, we got these people around, and we have a computer that streams, so we can just cycle people out, and it all works fine. And then it ended up being it ended up really resonating and being very successful, because sort of like us and the way that we are is very like, what's up, hang out with us, we're, we try to be, like nice people who hopefully whose digital company you hopefully enjoy. And then that sort of took off in, I think, a bigger way than we had planned. Like, we didn't have a goal. We weren't like, the tides of online content are shifting and we must be at the forefront, we're going to pivot to streaming. We were like, we should do streaming too, because it sounds fun. And so we put that in as the Kickstarter thing. I think it was James's suggestion. And then did it, and it really landed. And we're like, oh, well, okay, let's keep doing that.
And I mean,
I mean,
I don't know if I'd say that the tides of online content have changed. I mean, pre-recorded YouTube content is still very much a thing. It's just
Yeah, absolutely.
the tides of our particular interest have shifted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We still do both.
Yeah, we still do both. I mean, there's no way, there's no way of getting around also the fact that it's, being able to, the streaming allows us to interact with the audience and create sort of a new type of content that we were never able to do before, right? When you're making the videos, and you're doing like a 5-minute video every week, you have feedback on those videos in the comment sections and stuff, but you don't have it's not the same kind of thing as you get with the sort of chat feedback when you're streaming. And that's quite neat. Like, it's a totally different form of interacting. And I think it's,
yeah. I mean, the it's for us, obviously, especially for those of us who did do many years of, of sketch comedy and stuff. And, especially people like myself directly who were involved so much in the post-production. It's I don't think enticing is the right word, but it's a great feeling to be like, you show up, you do the stream, you're done, you've made the content,
right,
and
the content.
and while doing it, you get the live interaction of people being like, oh, this is great. And it's like, and then it's over, and you're done. Now, obviously, we put a lot more planning into it than just rock up and flip a switch. We put a lot of planning into stuff, and there's a lot of stuff after the fact that, like, for example, Heather does, which I think we'll talk about in a later question, but that Heather, like, put stuff up on the replay channels and everything. But by and large, comparative to like a big scripted thing, it's you make it, and then it's like, great, I made it, and you get all the live feedback, and it feels really nice.
Yep.
And I think also, I think we have the nice experience where, we can look at, like, if we are interested in making a piece of content, we can look at it and be like, okay, is this something that would be better suited pre-recorded, or is this something that we want to do live, or is this something we want to do, live, but just like edit the live version, or something that we want to be like super tightly edited, there's I
love that we have that flexibility.
Yeah, there's stuff like the panelists versus some of the like Sidewalk Slam or some of the podcasts and things that are edited, but it's effectively a recording of a live thing with stuff added into it to give it more context, or panelists where it's quite tightly edited, or a regular live stream. And each project can have different requirements and be sort of presented in the best way possible.
Yeah.
What are the job titles or roles that everyone performs at LRR? This is from Aldunis. I've been supporting y'all for 7 years now, but I actually have no idea what everyone officially does outside of performing and streaming to keep the lights running. As a side note, the like help us out on Patreon to keep the lights on is a very weird convention or sort of trope, I guess. The lighting is not that expensive. That's not the most expensive thing.
Everything's LEDs now. It's
Yeah.
keep
We
the
could keep
computers
the
going.
lighting on with a very, very small amount of Patreon.
Yeah, heating.
That's not the
That's
thing. Yeah.
yeah. So I think we should maybe it's something we should care about, but I don't know. But generally speaking, we don't actually have like job titles. I think the only official titles written down anywhere are co-president, which is Paul and myself. The roles, though, uh, there's a lot going on there. I don't know, James. What do you do?
So the only job title I use is basically whenever I cross the border and somebody asks me what I do,
Right.
because I find it so much easier than being like, I'm a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer. I tell them that I'm a production manager, which is significantly better and flies a little bit more in the traditional sense.
It's also accurate.
Yeah, exactly. So I am basically sort of the keeper of the schedule. I am the one who more or less organizes all of our production meetings and keep track of all of the Twitch streams, keep track of all of the recording times for all of podcasts and stuff like that. Basically making sure that everybody knows where they need to be when is kind of my job. And that entails, making sure that there's a weekly Slack channel for all of that. The calendar is up to date. There's a master spreadsheet that I have with everything on it so that, if we need to go back and look at something for whatever reason, it's there and we know who was on the stream when and stuff like that. So those are my big things. And then the other thing that I realized that I do a lot of that I don't do a lot of now is I generally am the one who keeps the office somewhat in an organized state. Like a lot of my time is spent making sure that, the studios are clean and the gear room is organized in a way. And I realized that I spend more of my week doing that than I thought I did because I'm not doing it anymore. And I'm like, what do I do all the time? Because I spend a lot of time in spreadsheets and Slack and stuff like that, but certainly feel like I have more free time. And that's because I don't have the office to be at. Yeah.
And
so it's definitely, yeah.
And of course, James also does all the logistical stuff around some of the big events we do, like the PPRs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
James is sort of the the production manager for the Twitch side of stuff as well. Yeah. And then on the other side, in terms of the YouTube, the pre-recorded stuff, Kathleen is sort of the production manager in that realm, and that's since Heather came on full time, that's also a zone that Heather's in. So Kathleen is basically head of the video production department, which is like editors, and so people like Corey and Matt who do editing, Adam as well. I mean, I also do editing. Kathleen also does editing.
Keeping track of the sort of editing pipeline and how much where various projects are in the in editing and whether we have time to do a new thing or whatever.
I think for for example, Checkpoint, myself and Beej and Kathleen all write that. Kathleen and I both write stuff like Commodore Hustle and Friday Nights. Everyone contributes to sort of crap shots, but I think there could be an argument for saying that Kathleen's probably our head writer, honestly, at this point. And then she does a lot of editing, of like scheduling, sort of, not scheduling is not the right word, but like if we've decided like, hey, we want to do a video like this, then we'll say like, hey, we're going to shoot this video. And then she'll be like, okay, I think that you want to edit it sort of like this. I think that Corey should be the one to edit it, and she'll sort of arrange things like that. And then, like she does a lot of editing herself. Like you mentioned the panelists earlier. Like, I think it is a testament to the work she does on it that people do not realize how much work she puts into editing the panelists. It's a preposterous amount to make it perfect.
I mean, I guess manager of the editing department is certainly part of it.
Though we recently decided that we should call it video production because it's not just editing, and it's this is why we're bad with titles. Heather does a lot of the I say at the end of podcasts, I'm like, Heather gets these online, and that's like a lot of the really thankless stuff where it's like we record something like this, like she's credited as series producer for this, because we start recording, and then we're like, all right, cool, are we all ready to go? Okay, all right. And Paul plays the intro, and then we do the whole thing, and we play the outro, and then we're like, all right, cool, that was fun, all right, stop recording. So then we send that to Heather, and she cuts off the parts that are useless and uploads it to YouTube and gives it a name and gives it a description and schedules it to go live. And she does that with everything that hits all of our YouTube channels, all the VODs, all the Twitch replays. And it's like, what if the automated editing thing messes up, and then someone needs to go through and manually cut out the commercial breaks, because that'll just be 7 minutes of dead air on a YouTube video. Heather does that.
It's one of those things where uploading a video to YouTube isn't that hard, isn't a big deal. But when you start getting into uploading multiple videos up to YouTube per day into different channels, keeping track of the comments, keeping all this stuff, and we brought Heather on sort of part time and now full time, just realizing that every piece of content we creates a subsequent piece of YouTube upload time that's
Yep.
required. So it's like, that's that in the past, that's been a bit of a, it's been kind of like a bottleneck. It's like, if you're working hard on, if somebody's working hard on editing something, it's hard to take a break from that to be like, oh, right, I need to upload and come up with a description for this video.
And Heather also dabbles.
Yeah, having that sort of under the auspices of one person is so useful.
She also dabbles in editing as well, doing stuff like Mail Time, and then on Loading Ready Live Day, traditional Loading Ready Live days, she acts sort of as like a stage manager, where during the morning planning meeting, she'll be writing everything down and being like, okay, but who's actually going to do all this? You're going to do this thing, you're going to do this thing, you're going to do this thing, and then a couple hours later, she'll be like, hey, James, how's that thing going that was your assignment? And James can either be like, everything's great, Heather, or, oh, right, that thing that I'm supposed to do. And it's really helpful having someone to do that. Me and Paul, I guess, do I have a title? No.
Well, okay, so I mean, we can also say like, so Bij is here as
business manager.
Business manager, which again is one of those jobs where you sort of don't necessarily think that you need one right away, and maybe you don't need one right away, but when you get to a certain point, it is the amount of time you spend on that stuff starts becoming more and more of your overall time.
I will say that I feel like while he's obviously served that role very well, there's still obviously aspects of it that will always require you to, or even certain other people's inputs. The one area where I think Bij has absolutely taken on an incredibly important role is our merch manager.
Yeah.
Merch I'm still involved a lot with. Like Bij and I
exactly.
We have little mini meetings about that all the time, and because I often design a bunch of it. But the work that he's done in just leveling up our merch, just being on top of it. Here's the thing, I'm so busy all the time, and so merch and emails and like the business of running things is stuff that I was just terrible at it, right? And so Bij, like if someone sends an email being like, hey, do you want to do a sponsored stream of this video game for 2 hours? Now someone can actually be like, yes, we would. In fact, we'd like to do it for more money than you're offering, please. And, actually do that communication. And then, like he'll get an email and be like, hey, everybody, do we want to do this? And we'll be like, yeah. And he's like, great, cool. And then he'll go away and handle all of the boring stuff that no one else wants to deal with. And then he'll come back and be like, we're doing it next Wednesday. And it's like, oh, great, good.
Well, and even beyond that, it's going to be, and this is how kind of weird this job has gotten, not weird, but just like how like real it's gotten, because it's Bij goes away and talks to them, and then Bij, contacts me, and then we work out the schedule and figure out when we can do it. and then Beach can go to everybody else, and he needs to talk to you guys about certain stuff. Like there's a lot more to so much of this stuff now than there used to be, which is surprising. I circled it back. I did it. I figured it out. The end. Podcast over.
So, I mean, fundamentally, part of the whole idea, part of the business, I guess, ownership idea is that everything else has to be done by either Graham or myself.
Yeah.
If nobody else is around to do it or busy or whatever, and it's got to be done, then sort of have to do it. But
and I should say we didn't talk about all of the people who are on contract or all the part-time employees, which is most of the other people who primarily do the stuff that you see, but also do behind the scenes stuff of like writing meetings and brainstorming, and like Ben does setup and production working with Paul for AFK streams, and Ian does like stuff with computer make work, like he'll do like programming aspects and things, and Corey does some of that as well. And so there's lots of little things like that, but yeah, Paul and I do a lot of different stuff,
and that, I mean, that's the great thing with every person that we bring on to work at the company is less different things that Graham and I have to do. So we always appreciate that.
Yeah. So like I do like we both contribute to writing. I do shooting and editing and sort of like art direction and creative design and stuff like that. And these days I'm doing, again, this is a future question, but I'm doing like a lot of podcast editing just because of how we have to do podcasts right now. So yeah, a lot of different things, like working with Beach on merch stuff as well. I mean, Paul does a lot of just amazing technical things, making all the streams like work and look great in a way that functions.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of the thing. I should say, I guess that's the part of that's the stuff that I like to do. The fun or the sort of creative aspect of my job tends to be based around the streams that we do and coming up with solutions to various problems that we have with that, and setting things up. And then of course there is the sort of businessy type stuff of actually paying people and setting up bank accounts and figuring out taxes and all that stuff, which is nobody likes to do. Well, I guess accountants like to do. I don't know. Presumably somebody likes to do it, but
I hope they like it. We've been getting them to do it for years.
Mm-hmm. And if they don't, well, we're paying them a bunch to do it. So yeah, I think that's. I mean,
I hope that
jumped around a lot, but yeah, and there is also then a certain aspect in Loading Ready Run stuff where there is definitely a everybody does everything kind of thing, and that's not necessarily even limited to employee. If you are near the office, just walking by, you may be taken in and used as somebody to hold the boom.
Yeah, everybody we mentioned and all the people we didn't mention also do more than all the things we said that they did. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
Let's carry on.
Yeah, next question. Yeah. Harold Price asks, what's the biggest thing you miss in the midst of this pandemic/social distancing?
I mean, I miss working at the office. Yeah. I miss just walking downtown and going to like Hey Happy and getting a coffee.
Yeah.
That's something that I was just realizing like the other day, is that I don't like walking without a purpose. Like but I don't know, I like going for walk. I like walking.
Yeah.
But it kind of bugs me to just like walk around in a circle for no reason.
I like to be like, all right, if we're gonna go out for a walk, let's go there, get a coffee, come home, and then we'll get a nice walk, but at least there's a goal. But these days, we
Yeah.
as a family we've been like, we need to get outside. We need to take this child outside. Let's just go in a big ass circle. Great, done.
But it was. I realized that, like, you don't realize until you aren't doing it or you can't do it, that, like, yeah, it's just it's not even that, like, I am a, I need the caffeine or something from coffee, because I have tea and stuff at home, or I don't even drink that much caffeine. But it's just such a nice. It's just like a nice, you know, you go and get like a coffee and maybe, like, a muffin or something, and just it's like a nice break, and it's a place to walk to, and it's just sort of, and you don't realize how much of this stuff, how many things in your life, even if you're, aren't going out to big, like, parties and stuff,
Oh, I don't give a shit about those, honestly.
but how many things in your life involve, groups of people being together.
I saw a tweet that was like, well, this was obviously some time ago, but it was like, well, we're 2 weeks into this, and I've realized that my top 3 favorite hobbies are bars, restaurants, and essential services. And it's, yeah, I just miss hanging out with people in person. Like, we've been doing a lot of hanging out on, in voice chat or video chats like this or whatever, but just being in person and, like, goofing around and making each other laugh. Like, I don't really have much of a social life outside of all my friends at Loading Ready Run, and so this has been like, oh, I miss hanging out.
That hasn't. I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't want to sound like, uncool. I haven't missed that as much as I thought I would. I've been pretty good in terms of, like, because we have this way of talking to each other, that's actually helped a lot.
That sounds like you, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm surprised.
I'm kidding.
It's weird. I didn't miss you as much as I thought I would.
Yeah, weird how that.
What I think I will miss later this year, because it's probably not going to hit me until later this year, is I haven't done an event since PAX Unplugged in December, and I'm willing to bet good money that I'm probably not going to be doing another one until next year at this point. I don't think many people will, to be honest. Not the big things. And that's a bummer. Like, not going to GP Vegas or Magic Fest Vegas this year is going to be a bummer. Not going to PAX West is going to be a bummer. Stuff like that, I think, is going to bum me out closer to the time we get there, for sure. So, also, I miss my Marvel movies.
That's fair. And they've said PAX West is still happening, but they're clearly just waiting until the state of Washington shuts them down so they can get the insurance on their contract.
I mean, if it happens, cool. I'm not going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm not going either.
I'm good.
Great time.
Yeah. All right. What do we got next?
A couple more.
Spencer Powell says, what does the journey files take from camera to edit to long-term storage? And how has that changed with the current situation? And are any of those changes ones that you plan to keep after return to normalcy?
So I can answer the last part of that first, which is no. Because the process currently is a big old mishmash, generally speaking.
Yeah, we probably have, there's probably a way to refine it. Okay, currently it's very sort of different methods are going different directions.
Very fractured at the moment. Yeah.
Using various online services.
Yeah, no. Generally, once we finish filming, we take the footage, we capture it to a computer, and either it sits on that computer or a drive connected to it while the project is edited on that computer and put onto our backup. Was it NAS? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it lives, and it also gets backed up online. Or sometimes it is captured directly to the backup because if we don't know where it needs to be, and then it's like, oh, I'm going to edit that thing. Cool. I'll sit down at this computer and I'll just grab the files from the storage or whatever. So yeah, we have a system for that involves 2 different backups because we're terrified of losing stuff. So that, yeah, currently the system now is like, it's like a bunch of external USB drives that Heather and I have, and we got to get these backed up somewhere at some point.
I like it. It's like USB drives and then like dead drops.
Yeah. We've definitely been
like,
doing some. We've definitely been doing.
There will be a USB drive outside your house at 4 p.m. Do not be late.
We have definitely been doing some sort of like, hi, here's a hard drive for you. Okay, thank you. Goodbye. So
Uh,
it wasn't an exciting answer, but it's the truth.
yeah. I mean, I guess there's a small aspect in terms of, what I think I've heard other people talking about is the idea that there are certain things that maybe there are certain things that can be done from home that we previously weren't doing from home, and stuff like that, that, theoretically, we're learning about. But,
Mm-hmm.
alrighty. Scott Armstrong asks a question for Graham,
Oh,
and also possibly others. What is your favorite old school global or CBC television program? And they say, I've always been a fan of The Big Friendly Giant. Such a soothing kids show.
the Friendly Giant.
All right, The Friendly Giant.
The Big Friendly Giant was the was it Roald Dahl?
Yes.
Yes. No, the Friendly Giant was no, it was great. It was a Canadian kids show of just like this.
Just big and giant are kind of redundant.
Right. So I forgot that we'd read this question ahead of time, and James looked it up because we were like, what do you mean old school global shows? Because James looked it up. Global launched in Canada in 1997.
Nationally in 1997. It was a local thing for
not around here.
No, not around here. So it's a 1974.
Wow.
And then they changed to Can West. So they launched as CKGN TV. Then they relaunched as Can West Global in 1980, and then they launched as a national brand all across Canada in 1997.
I feel like this is one of those dangerous situations where our valuation of what's old school versus what some of the audience evaluation is might be sadly changed. Although they do say The Friendly Giant, which is, I mean, that's legit old school.
Yeah. So okay, so
like,
your morning.
It's like, how do you feel about old school shows like My Little Pony? Friendship is Magic.
So I'm gonna barrel through shows that I remember from watching on early morning TV, generally on the CBC. You mentioned The Friendly Giant, though I think that was sometimes on Knowledge Network. Mr. Dress Up, Fred Penner, Sesame Street, and Sesame Street Canada, which had different scenes. The Polka Dot Door. We got a couple UK imports because I distinctly remember Rainbow and Puddle Lane, which I had to look up that I got the name right. And I forgot that the main character in Puddle Lane, the magician, was played by Neil Innes, who just recently passed away. One of the many people with the possible credit of the additional Python. He did a bunch of work with Monty Python. Under the Umbrella Tree. What else? I think that was most of them from that sort of era of. And Camp Caribou.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure. We'll call it there.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, to be honest, I'm still a fan of Fraggle Rock, talking about Muppets from earlier. Yeah. And I think I probably watched Sesame Street and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So I got proper old school CBC original.
Okay.
Road to Avonlea.
Oh my gosh, yes.
1990 to 1996.
My family watched Road to Avonlea every Sunday.
Sunday night. Yep. Every Sunday night in the Turner household was roast beef and Road to Avonlea. Sometimes lamb, but mostly just roast beef.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I always liked, and it's something that from what I understand, has kind of fallen out of favor in terms of children's programming. But the idea of, and stuff like Reading Rainbow, and those kinds of shows, where the idea being that they like to do kids shows now. They like to do actual like teaching kids like actual information, I guess, like facts or how to do math and that kind of stuff. Square one, by the way.
I guess I forgot. Yeah, because so most of that was CBC shows, but we did get PBS, which is where I would have watched the non-Canadian Sesame Street
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Reading Rainbow, Mister Rogers' Neighborhood, Square One TV. Yeah,
But
where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
yeah, but I always quite like there's sort of the style of shows where it's more about just like getting kids excited about learning in general. Like Reading Rainbow and those kinds of shows where it was less about actually imparting specific pieces of information and more about just getting kids kind of into the concept of learning, and that learning is not, and Mr. Rogers was kind of like that too.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's. That was supposed to be our last question, but I messed up. So let's answer one or two others.
All right.
We have a document for these. You see.
What are some interesting backstage stories from the early days of Loading Ready Live? This comes from Samurai Tiger 19.
So I inferred this question to be, by the use of backstage and early days of Loading Ready Live, I inferred this to be the live fringe show that we also call Loading Ready Live.
That's what I assumed as well.
But, like, there are no later days of Loading Ready Live.
That's what I thought. It's like
about
backstage and early day. I'm confused.
I just remember that Tally, who had not necessarily been dating Jer for that long at the time,
certainly
was
not
doing our like stage makeup, and so like we did not really know her very well. I actually don't know if it makes a difference, because I know her pretty well now, and still, diving off stage and like ripping my clothes off down to my underwear while she's just sort of sitting there backstage and then putting on a different costume and running back on stage. That's got to be weird for everybody. Because quick changes were
really
a thing.
real jump into the deep end on the whole like friends part.
Yeah,
I do not.
You're in it now.
I do not remember anything from that show. I remember the show. I remember practicing for the show up at UVic a lot. But I don't really remember doing the show.
I vaguely remember the show, not well enough. That's the only like funny backstage story. Someone was late for a queue once, I think. Like, honestly, the show went really well.
Yeah, things relative. I think the last day, our sound guy. Who is our sound guy?
Rob and Luke.
Yeah.
Rob and Luke were doing tech.
Yeah, they started messing with us on the last day,
as is tradition,
and like swapped around a bunch of the sound effects and stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, I think things went comparatively well.
Sure. Backstage,
we got 3.5 stars out of 5 from Monday Magazine.
You still have that on your fridge?
Still do.
Damn.
They called James frequently funny.
Often hilarious.
Often hilarious. That's it.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah.
All right. I think there's another question here about what changes due to social distancing at the moon base are going to be continuing or could become permanent. Other than Jackbox games, maybe
Jackbox. Like, we have thing is like, sure, now we know how to do all this stuff remotely, and we can do it all remotely, and that's cool. But it's so much nicer, and the energy is so much better if we can be in the same room.
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting. It's like the shows that have stayed the same, like Let's Know, Lure MTG, Talking Sim, those shows work so much better in person at the moon base. Yeah. Like they've always been. Jackbox, honestly probably is the way that we've done it especially this last episode where everybody was visible.
Mhm.
I actually think that's probably one of the best ways that you could present that show, to be honest. I don't actually know
everybody actually like crowding into one room to do
8
it.
people in one room, I don't actually think would work super well. I don't know. It could work, but I think it's probably a bit too chaotic. And then the other ones that have worked fairly well are the arena streams, where we're actually battling each other, though, right? And
Yeah.
I think that we could probably, continue to build on those and make them a better experience for the viewer.
And that was actually something we had talked about doing before any of this. We were like, you know, what we could do with Arena is we could like challenge each other if we could figure out a good way to make that look. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
we figured that out now.
Yeah. So I feel like that one could absolutely keep doing as well. So, but everything else, yeah, no. Back at the moon base, Dice Friends, no, God, no. Everything just, it works so much better when we're in person, especially podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
All right. Well, I think that's the last question there. So thank you all very much for joining us for this askLRR. And as a reminder, these questions were from our YouTube members. So you can join up with a YouTube membership if you want to be able to ask a question. We won't necessarily answer every question that is asked because some questions are not good questions. And sometimes we don't have enough time, but also some bad questions.
Yeah, the memberships are there if you want to directly support us, but you don't feel like getting into Patreon or you don't watch us on Twitch. It's another option. We have no preference for, if you are someone who wants to support us directly, we have no preference for how you do that. And it's just there as an option. And as we've said a bunch through all of this, if you, for whatever reason, if you need to, if you are supporting us and need to not do that, take care of yourself. You don't need to tell us or apologize or excuse it. You do you. But we do thank everyone who is able to support us so much for letting us do this, because we've been very lucky through this to be able to keep on trucking. So
So we'll be doing another one of these next month, and but for now we will talk to all y'all later. Bye.
Bye.